$65 billion vanished. That's more money than the gross domestic product of entire nations. And it disappeared not in a bank robbery or corporate heist, but through perhaps the most audacious con game in American history. The man at the center was not some masked criminal or international fugitive. He was a pillar of Wall Street respectability, a trusted advisor to thousands, a philanthropist, a board member of the NASDAQ. His name was Bernard Madoff, and for nearly 5 decades, he ran the largest Ponzi scheme ever perpetrated. Bernie Madoff was born in April 1938 in New York City. His father was a small-time broker and accountant. Madoff entered the investment world in 1960 with just $5,000, borrowed partly from his father-in-law. He started Bernard L. Madoff Investment Securities out of a small office in Manhattan. For the first 20 years, his firm remained relatively small and unremarkable. Then, in the 1980s, everything changed. Madoff pioneered the use of electronic trading and market-making technology. His firm became known for its sophisticated computerized trading systems and innovative approach to the business. By the 1990s, Bernard Madoff Investment Securities had become a powerhouse. The firm handled billions in trading volume. Madoff himself became a legend of Wall Street. He served as chairman of the NASDAQ exchange. He was known for his integrity, his brilliance, his almost uncanny ability to deliver consistent returns regardless of market conditions. But beneath this veneer of success and legitimacy, something darker had taken root. The investment advisory side of Madoff's business, which promised clients steady, reliable returns, was not investing their money at all. It was a Ponzi scheme, and Madoff had been running it since at least the early 1990s. The scheme worked deceptively simply. New investors would give Madoff their money. He would tell them he was using a sophisticated trading strategy called the split-strike conversion. He explained that he would buy blue-chip stocks and simultaneously purchase put and call options on stock index futures to hedge the position. It was complex, it sounded legitimate, and for most people, it was impossible to fully understand. That was precisely the point. In reality, Madoff never executed these trades. The statements he sent to clients were pure fiction. They showed perfectly consistent returns, somewhere between 8 and 12% annually, regardless of what the markets were actually doing. When the stock market crashed in 1987, Madoff's reported returns remained steady. When the tech bubble burst in 2000, his clients still saw gains on their statements. This is one of the most obvious red flags of a Ponzi scheme. No legitimate investment strategy delivers consistent positive returns in all market conditions. Yet Madoff's clients either didn't notice or didn't want to notice. The money flowed in through various channels. There were feeder funds, investment firms, and money managers who recommended Madoff to their wealthy clients. These feeder funds had no idea they were routing their clients' money into a fraud. They trusted Madoff's reputation. There were also direct investors, wealthy individuals and families who gave their savings to Madoff. He cultivated an air of exclusivity around his investment advisory business. It was hard to get in. The minimums were high. This very exclusivity made investors feel privileged, special, trusted. Madoff used his reputation, his position at NASDAQ, his philanthropic activities, and his general aura of respectability to build confidence. He recruited investors from his country club, from his synagogue, from the circles of wealthy New Yorkers he frequented. The scale grew steadily over the years. In 1992, Madoff's advisory business was managing about $300 million. By 2000, it had grown to about $8 billion. By 2008, the amount had ballooned to $65 billion. This enormous sum represented the claims made by his clients, though much of this existed only on paper. The money that actually came in from new investors and from people requesting withdrawals was often simply sent to other investors as payments. This is how all Ponzi schemes function. Early investors get paid real money from funds supplied by later investors. This creates an illusion of legitimate returns, which attracts more investors. The pyramid grows larger and larger until it becomes mathematically impossible to sustain. For 16 years, Madoff maintained this system. He employed a small team of people who knew the truth. They created false account statements. They maintained the computerized records. They transferred funds between accounts. Everyone else at the firm, the legitimate market-making business, knew nothing. The fraud remained compartmentalized, hidden, protected by layers of secrecy and by Madoff's sheer force of personality and reputation. Then came December 2008. The financial crisis had devastated the markets. The stock market had crashed. People who had been receiving consistent profits from their investments suddenly decided to withdraw their money to salvage what they could. Madoff received redemption requests totaling $7 billion. He simply did not have the money. The scheme required a constant influx of new capital. With investors panicking and withdrawing funds en masse, the entire structure collapsed. Madoff tried desperately to find a way out. He contacted 2 investment firms seeking emergency financing. When that failed, he realized the game was over. On December 10, 2008, Madoff confessed to his 2 sons that his investment business was a fraud. His sons immediately reported him to the authorities. On December 11, 2008, federal agents arrested Bernard Madoff at his Manhattan apartment. He was 70 years old. The investigation that followed was extensive and meticulous. The Securities and Exchange Commission, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and federal prosecutors worked to understand the full scope of the fraud. What emerged was a crime of staggering proportions. Madoff had stolen nearly $65 billion from approximately 4,900 investors. Some of these people were Holocaust survivors who had entrusted their life savings to him. Many were retirees who had relied on these investments for their daily living expenses. Charities and foundations lost their endowments. Entire families saw their wealth vanish. Madoff pleaded guilty to 11 federal crimes, including securities fraud, money laundering, and perjury. In June 2009, he was sentenced to 150 years in prison, essentially a life sentence. He was sent to Butner Federal Penitentiary in North Carolina. He lived there until his death in April 2021 at the age of 92. The victims were the ones who paid the price. Some lost their retirement savings, some lost their homes, some lost everything. An investor named Ruth Madoff, who had been with Madoff since the beginning, lost $20 million. Charities that had received gifts from Madoff's philanthropy suddenly discovered that the gifts came from stolen money and had to attempt restitution. The SEC and FBI were criticized for not catching Madoff sooner. Multiple red flags had been raised over the years. In 1999, a financial analyst named Harry Markopoulos had actually uncovered calculations that proved Madoff's strategy was mathematically impossible. He repeatedly warned the SEC, but the SEC failed to investigate properly. Internal emails later showed that SEC examiners had suspected fraud, but had not followed up aggressively enough. The Madoff fraud changed the investment world permanently. It led to increased regulatory scrutiny of hedge funds and investment advisors. It led to stronger requirements for independent audits and custodians. It damaged confidence in Wall Street and in the financial system itself. It showed that reputation and prestige could mask the darkest crimes. It demonstrated that arrogance and the human tendency to want to believe can make us vulnerable, even the most sophisticated, experienced investors. Bernard Madoff died in prison, a forgotten figure, but his legacy lives on in the broken lives of his victims and in the lessons learned about greed, deception, and the gaps that exist in financial regulation, no matter how sophisticated the system appears to be. Follow the Grift Reports for more financial crime stories.